All right, welcome back, everyone. Steve Atkinson here with the Canadian Saddle Hunter, and I am honored to be with Shan Cunningham from Tactacam Canada, as well as a bunch of other stuff what we're going to hear about today. So Shan, thank you for joining us. And we just start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, so as you said, Shan Cunningham. I live down on the very far east coast of Canada, down here in Nova Scotia, right in Halifax. Uh, I'm a hunting and fishing guide down here in Nova Scotia, and I pro staff for a number of companies, including Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's. I work along with Tactacam. I work for BaitYourHook.com. Quite a few in the industry for hunting and fishing both. So. For Tactacam, I was actually the very first Tactacam staff member in Canada outside of the US. And probably 7 years ago now. I had applied when I was first starting to get into the industry of doing pro staff jobs and things. And I signed on for Tactacam and did a phone interview with them. And they were kind of anything outside of the US, they never even looked at it before. So yeah, I had the interview with them and they took me on. And of course, once I get in there, I realized that you couldn't buy a Tactacam in Canada anywhere. So that was one thing I pushed and pushed for, trying to get them so you could actually buy one here, right? Because I followed them a lot through the American market. It took a couple of years of that, and then eventually they just started allowing to build a team. So we started building teams, and now we're to the point now that we still have a long ways to go for the Canadian side of it, but I mean, the Tactacams, you can get them now in Canadian Tire and Cabela's Canada, and we're still trying to get them in the Bass Pro Shops here in Canada. I don't know. There's always been a bit of a kind of a divide between, even though Bass Pro owns Cabela's, there always seems to be a bit of a divide with the Bass Pros in Canada versus the US. So like say my store here in Halifax, even I've only been able to get a few of the Tactacam products in there. Pushing. I mean, I have so many people that want to buy the products, and it makes it difficult to get them. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm really glad that it's the market is starting to open up here in Canada. That's part of what we're doing here with Canadian Saddle Hunter, is trying to get some of that stuff from the US up here into Canada and get it in our hands. Stuff like the Tactacam and the Reveal. It's sold out so fast here. I mean, you know better than I would, but it's like it was all of us, like it just seemed like I heard a couple whispers like, "Oh, this is good," and I went to go buy one, and it's like poof, they just disappeared.
Yeah. I don't think we ever did get them into my store down here. I think pretty low around here on the East Coast. I just had to keep telling them to go on Cabela's.ca and order them online. Just that, they had a few that came into the store and they were sold out before they even got here. So
Yeah,
like hotcakes.
yeah, no, it's good. I'm looking forward to utilizing them more. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is filming our own hunts. Saddle hunters, we're kind of gearheads. We like to tinker, and and then if you're tinkering and have an idea, there's all these YouTube and videos and blogs going all over the place now. But filming your hunt, being a guide, you have to seen how people react just normally hunting, and being a hunter yourself, and myself. I think I'm all good, but all of a sudden, that deer or that turkey or that bear or whatever walks out, and I just, like, my mind just does crazy things. So how does adding the pressure or extra thing to do of filming a hunt, how do, so like myself, fairly new to filming hunts, how do you recommend people start doing that? Because it's so great to watch it afterwards and actually be able to replay that memory and experience it and see where your shot went, because trying to replay that moment over again. How do you recommend new people start into filming their hunts?
Yeah, like I say, this was actually a big learning year for myself too. Was my wife and I signed on with Wild TV. We actually were hosting part of the co-host for the Canada Hunts show on there, and our first episode just went on to air 2 weeks ago, I think. And it was a big learning curve even for us. Like, I'd always filmed using the Tactacams and of course the cell phones and stuff like that. And then so they'd sent me the Handycam. It's just basically a Sony Handycam for the camera gear they use for Wild TV. They sent that down with some boom mics and lapel mics and such. And just adding that element in along with the Tactacam and of course cell phones and stuff, and it's just a whole other aspect of hunting to try and get it on film, knowing that you're going to try and have it for an audience. And I don't know how many times that I passed up bears and deer that I never normally would have because you just couldn't get them on film well enough. It was later in the day, just this time of day here now. The sun's just going down. The cameras don't pick it up a lot of times of what you're seeing. You're definitely well within legal shooting light, but to get it on film is a whole other thing. It's just too dark. So it changed a lot of things, let a lot of animals walk that I wouldn't have normally. But before all the wild TV stuff, I mean, I just, like I say, I was using Tactacams, cell phones, stuff. It's the way I did it myself. And everyone loves being able to save that. And it seems to be, like you said, it's getting more and more that people want to have that just for your own memories and stuff, whether you're just making YouTube videos or whether you want to take it to another level and have it on television or something.
Yeah, I think it's great, and having something like the Tactacam, it's so versatile. Because I've tried to get my cell phone. I think I've tried duct tape, I've tried electrical tape. I bought different things to get my cell phone to be on there holding stuff
Yeah.
in the right angle, and it just and then getting it out and like swiping to the camera app and pressing it and like trying to get it positioned. Well, it hasn't worked very well so far.
And
Um,
that's what I loved about Tactacam. That's what made me fall in love with them. Is the single button operation. Like
yeah,
say when I have one, like I have the bow mount, and you can get the remote controls for them as well. So I love the remote controls because now what I do is like this year here I had 5 different Tactacams going, and they're all remote controlled. So I can just click run up to you turn them all on and they're all starting to record. So what I did for my bear sites, uh, I turned them. You can actually put them into a silent feature so they don't vibrate and they don't even light up. So the downside is you're not sure they went off to begin with when they're
yeah,
starting. You're hoping that everything's working right, but at least the bears weren't. Because I noticed before the blinking light or any kind of vibrate, the bears a lot of times are going after them. So it was nice to be able to have that feature and have them all turn on at once. But even if you're just running one Tactacam, it's that single button operation. It's what sold me on them in the first place. Like I bow hunt a lot, so I have it right in my stabilizer mount, and then I just click that button and it's recording. I'm not worried about other than pointing it, but where it's on the stabilizer is wherever your bow's pointing, you're filming. So it was the biggest learning curve of that was I practiced a lot uh, as I practiced with the Tactacam on there, and it would make you realize not to drop your bow after the shot, to keep your bow up and follow that animal as it's running off, and get if you want that footage. And that's probably one of the biggest learning curves of filming with the Tactacams is to remember to follow through and get that animal as it's going away, because so many of us have done that. You make your shot and then all you see is the ground and it just
yeah,
points down, and realize that, oh, I should have had that that deer running off or whatever. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to doing more. One of the things myself, the reasons that I started wanting to film more, it's great to have the memories and to learn, but also for recovery. I'm sure all of it's if you've hunted for any period of time, you've shot an animal, thought you made a good shot, and then ended up not being able to recover and not being able to harvest it, and it's an awful feeling. It was a few years ago here on my own property here where I shot a deer and I was sure it was dead. Like I was like, it's smoked. Maybe we'll give him 20 minutes. I was hunting with a buddy, so I'm like, okay, it was first thing in the morning. We'll just let it sit. I'll sit up here and I'll let him hunt there. No sense ruining anything. And a couple hours later, we came down and I was sure it was going to be, right behind this little hedge, but we never found it. And we looked for like 4 hours. And thankfully, I ended up seeing him later on that year with a scar across his shoulder. It must have just the way the angle was. And so I'm glad he made it through. But to be able to record this shot and see what it is, to know whether it's to chase the deer, like, or to back out, whether it's like you can see the blood coming out, it's a good penetration, all that. To know those things, it just helps you sleep a lot better at night. I think afterwards, that's one
yeah,
of the things, ethically, I think is one of the things that cameras can really help with. Because I know I've bumped deer after shooting them. I'm sure you have, you know,
yeah.
as well. Knowing that information is very helpful. What are some things that, again, people who are new to filming should take into consideration where if they really want to film their hunt and get some good quality? Are there things that we should think about as far as like even sun placement, like, what side of the tree you're on, or set up like saddle hunters, we have the advantage. We can pretty much set up wherever we want, right? Um, are there some things that we should take into consideration lighting wise? Because I can imagine, like you said, passing up on a deer you want to shoot because camera light's getting low. What should we take into consideration when setting up?
Yeah, like lighting's a big one for filming it for sure. But like I say, I'm there to hunt first. So like for down here on the East Coast, we rarely ever get winds directly go to the east. Like they rarely for here. I don't know about where you're at, but it's maybe you could probably count on one hand the amount of times you get an easterly wind directly to the east. So almost always my stand will face almost due west. So the downside of that is the late day you're getting the sun. And if you hit that, then you can have that sun right in your camera. But predominantly for the hunting side of it is that I know that I'm never going to usually get a wind right on my back from me to my bait site if I'm hunting over bait or a scrape or whatever. That's normally how I set them up. Now I may tweak that a little bit for filming wise, that I may move it a little bit so I'm not facing due west, but a little bit off or something to take that sun into account where it's going to be setting down. But the good part is for most of the spots we hunt here are quite thick, so the sun usually doesn't play a big part, and you usually have a shadow of some type from the trees or quite thick forest here. So
Right on. Oh, that's good to know. It makes sense. What I'm hoping to do this year is I'm hoping to, yeah, I'm having the Tactacam on my bow. Or I primarily hunt bow. I do hunt crossbow a little bit. Then we have black powder. It depends on how if my tags are filled or not. Um, Go there, but have one on my weapon and then one on the ground somewhere. I really like when you see the shot from two perspectives. What distance should we, like myself and others who are listening, set up their ground camera, as it were, um, to get the shot?
Well, one thing with the Tactacams, if you're using Tactacams, they have the zoom capability built right into them, so you don't need them overly close. But most of mine, like when I did a lot of the bear sites, even the deer sites this year, I just kept the cameras back, like maybe 10 yards from the bait where I knew the animal was going to be into, and it gives you a really nice close-up image of that animal for sure if you're going ground level. I cheated a bit this year. I say this now because of course Tactacam wants us to be able to sell the mounts and stuff. You can use the universal mounts. But one thing I did a lot this year was zip ties, and I'd just take a small tree and I'd run one zip tie around the tree and then a zip tie through that zip tie around the Tactacam. So and it was so quick and easy. And then I could just snip them off at the end of the day and take those zip ties home with me. I wasn't leaving garbage in the woods or anything. But it was so fast to run those two zip ties, and it would keep your camera enough that you could angle that Tactacam, whichever way you wanted, up or down, or you could spin it around the tree. And it was perfect for what I needed. I could set up sites so quickly with, like say, 3 ground level cameras in just a couple of minutes, run them that way. If you have small enough trees or big enough zip ties, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, one of the two, eh? Or even a stick. You would stick a stick in the ground and use that.
Yeah.
Right on it. And then that's how, for those who don't know, like the remote for the Tactacam. So if let's say I have one on the ground and one on my bow, and I see that that buck starting to come out, do I just press the button on the remote and it starts recording, or how does that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So that one button remote works the same way. I just hang around my neck. And then how I had it set up last year, as I had one of the wide angle Tactacams right behind me, so it's getting you from behind for that scene. And then I had the one in my bow stabilizer, and then 3 ground level ones, and then I was recording as well with the Wild TV Sony Handycam on a camera arm off the tree. But at least when an animal walked in, it was one click of the button on the remote and hit record on the Handycam, and I've got 6 cameras running in seconds. I had them all
Yeah.
set up. And somebody else has told me that with the Handycams is not to mess around with too much trying to zoom in and follow the animal. That's the advantage of the Tactacams is you get that ground level imagery, and you have the one on your weapon, whether it's going to be your bow or your rifle, and that's able to give you that movement. And then you just leave your camera, if you're using a Handycam or whatever video camera, it's set and recording. And of course, with they're all in 4K as well, you can zoom that image in later if you want anything else.
Yep. No, that's cool. I'm looking forward to experiencing that more this year. I know it does add, something else to the mix, but like that simple, like that one button, I think that makes a big difference. Um, having to play with something here and adjusting it and trying to zoom in and zoom out and then worrying about all that stuff. Just I just knew honestly I couldn't handle all that. I think out of the phone, having it on there, I have some stories. If you drop your phone trying to record a deer you're about to shoot and you scare the deer away, it, you're not, yeah, and it doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. um, but you said, well, we were chatting a little bit beforehand how you guide both hunting and fishing. And so then I'm sure you experience helping people who are brand new kind of to hunting and those who are really experienced. In your years of hunting yourself and in guiding, what are some of the things that stand out for you that help separate successful hunters from people who are less successful, whether it's harvesting an animal or not? But what are some of the keys you picked up that separate sort of how long they've been doing it, the those with more to learn and those who have a lot of wisdom? We'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, as a guide, I mean, personally, I prefer new bear hunters. Like I say, bears what we mostly specialize in. We do guide for deer and others as well, upland. But bear hunting is kind of our bread and butter down here, and we have a lot of bears. Just what we do, my wife and I both guide for the most. But personally, I prefer brand new bear hunters because I find sometimes you get, like we're mostly dealing with Americans and European clients and stuff. Uh, the way bear hunts work, predominantly the pricing end of it, the East Coast is the lowest price, and then you gradually get higher the farther west you go. And mind you, the western end of the Canada has a lot more to offer with, bigger bears and color phase bears. We don't have any of those down here. Like, we do have bigger bears, but the majority of them are usually smaller bears in the West. And definitely, for color phase, they're very rare down here. So to get those first time bear hunters in is usually like I like that a lot more than somebody that's hunted a whole bunch of times, just because they're expecting things differently than what we have down here on the East Coast, right? Yeah, as far as having them in the stand, safety is the big thing for us. Get them in there and get them harnessed in, and we use mostly ladder stands for everything here. So we don't like them getting down out of the stand until we come get them later in the day. If we don't have a busy week, a lot of times I like sitting with them if they want me there, because I'm a hunter. I love to hunt. I could care less if I'm the one pulling the trigger or the release. And if I'm sitting there with somebody else, and especially if it's their first time bear, I get just as excited as they do to see them take their first bear than any bear I've ever taken myself. So that's why I get into guiding, just for that end of it. Is like that gives me that excitement that I don't get quite as often as I used to. Right? So.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's part of why I started this saddle hunting Canada, is when you help introduce people to new things and you see their success and sharing in that. It's just a great feeling. It's great to see. Or now my kids are getting old enough to start hunting now, and that excitement that they have when they see things. There's nothing else like it. There's very very, very few things in life that get that thrill. That, I mean, literally shaking. You can't walk, you can't talk. You can, as the hunt, like there's something hardwired into us that it just
Oh yeah,
blows their circuits.
I mentored a girl last year. We do a mentoring program down here. We take new hunters and anglers and get them out the first time. And I had a girl and her father out last year, and she was only 16. That's the legal age to hunt down here in Nova Scotia. So it was her first year hunting, actually. So I got her out for some deer hunts, and we filmed it. Hopefully it'll make it there. I'm not sure if it will or not. But to see her excitement, just seeing does walking through the field, and she was physically shaking. And I said, I can't even remember getting that excited watching deer. That it's been so long for myself, and it was so neat to see that again. And then give away the ending with the buck she wound up taking. She was just. It took her like 45 minutes probably to get calmed down enough to even be able to make the shot. Like thankfully the deer hung around that long that she was able to. But to see that amount of excitement in someone, I miss that. I wish I could get that back again. To have that every time.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's one of the greatest parts about hunting. It's able to share that, and again, like about even filming hunts is to be able to film my kids and remember those memories and have that recorded on camera, to share, to remember and to share for years to come. I think it's amazing. Um, Besides, obviously, Tactacam is the main thing we've talked about so far today, but in guiding people and seeing the broad um, range of experience, what is some gear that you recommend to people who are, maybe either starting out or maybe have been around for a while, but just things that you found in your experience, both as a hunter and as a guide, have really made a difference to your hunting enjoyment?
Well, the big thing I would say, like they'll see us staffing for a lot of these companies, think they have to go and spend a fortune on a lot of the stuff. And a lot of you just keep it simple. Like we get asked all the time, we get hunters in, like especially like say going back to bear hunts, and they'll ask what's the best camo. I'm gonna go buy a new camo before I come up there. What should I have to match the surroundings? And I keep telling them, anything dark, like you can wear black gear, and the bears, it's movement they pick up on. I'll have some of my sponsors after me for saying this because they want to be able to sell the top of the line gear, right? But a lot of that's for us. Like the animals, like say they don't. It's more movement and smell that they pick up on. So it's like we're all guilty of. We go out and try to buy the best stuff we can get, but a lot of you don't need all the best stuff to go and just starting out things. So people don't need to think that they need to go and spend that kind of money just getting into the start. So.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I think.
our grandparents all shot most deer in flannel jackets and blue jeans, right? That's
Yep.
majority of our grandparents shot most of the deer.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's very true. I think that's right. It's, I mean, you said fishing. I think most lures are designed to catch fishermen more than fish, because it's like, oh, look at that. Oh, we got to get that one. Oh, that color. Yeah, we have to get that one there too.
That's for sure. I was
Yeah.
I was actually talking to a fishing guide over in Norway or Denmark, I think, here a few weeks ago, and he was telling me he's got rid of all of his gear and all he fishes now is Rapalas. That's all he uses, and he's doing amazing over there with. And he said that he said he'll show up, and most of us go out when we're guiding for fishing. We'll have tackle boxes full every piece going,
Everything.
and he's showing up with like 4 lures, and that's it, and that's all he needs for the day. And those are the ones that work for him, and that's what he takes. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
keep it
think,
simple.
yeah, keep it simple. No, I think that's very true. It's easy to, like I said, sell, especially saddle hunters, it seems, are gearheads and want everything. Or like you said, it's always the next, the newest color of camo and the newest pattern and offers this and that. But keeping it simple and remembering the basics. I mean, I know most of the time when I've gotten busted, it's not because of, like my camo or this, I wasn't high enough, wasn't low enough. It's because I was moving and I wasn't paying attention,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
was rushing something. The time, where if I would have waited 5 more seconds, the deer would have passed behind a tree, and I could have brought up my bow. I saw it. I brought my bow up real quick, and he
Yeah.
saw the movement. Just keeping it simple, keeping it basic, and being confident in the simplicity, I think, is one of the biggest things that separates those who successful hunters, whether you agree with home harvest or not, but to enjoy the woods. Like keeping it simple is important.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, Nova Scotia is where you're at, and you talked about connecting with people, even across the ocean there in Europe. What are some of your memorable hunts that you've done in your area or in Canada over the years that really stick out for you?
Uh, say I get a lot of the first time hunters and things. I really enjoy getting the first time bear or deer hunters. So I think trying to think now right off the top of my head. I think some of them are just the excitement in them to get that first time is the most memorable for sure. I think one of the most frustrating ones I had was I had a couple clients in one time for deer, and they were from Iraq actually, and they're coming mid-November, and it's cold down here on the East Coast
Yeah.
mid-November. But they timed it perfectly. It was in the peak of the rut, and the bucks were moving like crazy. And so I had these guys all set up. You know, I bought a bunch of gear to keep them comfortable. I had them in, ground blinds with heaters and everything going to make it and I knew they were going to find it really cold, and I kept warning them beforehand. And when they came down, they took 2 of the 5 days off to stay back at the hotel because it was so cold. They just didn't want to hunt. And the other 3 days that they hunted, they were only there in the stand for maybe 3 hours each time. That was it. And I planned to go all day from sun up to sundown. And because I say in the peak of the right, you just never know when those nice bucks are going to be walking through, and they just didn't want to put the time in. And it was one of the most frustrating weeks I've ever done as a guide, because I knew those bucks were moving and I wanted to be out there hunting, and they just they didn't want to. They weren't hunters. It was their first time hunting at all, and they were happy. I mean, they left happy. They were there for the experience. But for me as a guide, I wanted them to get deer, and I wanted them to be able to see a lot of deer, and they didn't want to be out there for it. So.
Yeah, you got to spend the time. What about you personally? In your hunts, what are some of your more memorable experiences when you're hunting?
Probably get my wife involved. Like say when she and I got together, that she didn't even know anybody that hunted, right? So she was a city girl, and born in Thailand and raised here in Nova Scotia, and she had fished a little bit, but never hunted anything. So to just we first got together, and trying to get her out with me some, and she just jumped in with both feet, and like say now she's a registered guide as well. Like that's how far she's come in the 8 years we've been together, both second marriage and stuff. But just seeing her come along and be able to pick it up from scratch to where she is now, it's been huge.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting in a lot of these interviews that I've done so far. One of the most common themes is the theme of family and helping others. It's really interesting because we talked a little bit before we started recording about some of the other jobs and about Nova Scotia not having a spring bear season. And it so often hunters can be portrayed as these, just kill them all and don't care about all this stuff, and we just want to go out and shoot Bambi. But time and time again, when I ask that question, what's some of your more memorable experiences? Time and time again, for people who are leaders in the industry and people who've spent years and years doing it, is the sharing of experiences that they've had with others, where it's your wife in your case, or helping guide people, or John and Donald from JX3 Hybrid Saddles talking about taking his kids out, and he took more or less 10 to 12 years where he hardly shot anything because he was just with his kids, taking his kids out hunting and trying to guide them out, and how time and time again it's just something that stands out from these things. And I really appreciate that as a hunter, because it's great to see that people who are leaders in the industry, that's one of the things they care about the most, is helping other people enjoy it, helping other people get outdoors, enjoy themselves. And it's just a good, just feels good,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They started a program down here in Nova Scotia a couple of years ago, and it was I don't know if it's going to last because it's a lot more than they were able to take on. But it was called the NOAA Registry, a network of anglers and hunters. And what it was based off of the Big Brothers Big Sisters model, where people could sign up to be mentored, and then others would sign up to do the mentoring. And you went through all the criminal background checks and everything else. So I signed up to be a mentor for a lot, and I've done it the last 2 or 3 years now. I think last year I had eight different ones I took out, and everyone was just memorable to get, whether, some of them were first time bear, first time deer. We had some upland hunters, some were into fishing. It was great just to be able to, and when they started the program, it seemed like it was going to be more for kids, but it's way more adults. But it was like people that are close to my own age that were just, they never hunted but wanted to learn, right? Or they hunted a little bit but never really had anybody to show them. So there's a huge need for that everywhere in the world, really. People that, and then as times go on, you're seeing less and less that, like when I grew up, my father hunted, my grandfather hunted, so it was inherited right into myself. But a lot of people don't have that. They don't have anybody in their family, but now they want to be able to get into it. If we don't keep that going and keep it alive, then hunting's going to eventually go away if we don't keep paying it forward.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think it's such an important thing to do. to help provide the opportunity for others to do it, to share in that, and even for our resources. But the real hunters, we care more about the environment and put the dollars into conservation than almost any other, I think, group of people, because like we're invested into it. Like it's if there aren't any deer out there, like there's no deer to hunt, and like I want there to be on my property. I want there to be more deer, like as many deer as it can handle. I want there to be deer everywhere. I want there to be turkeys flying off the roost, keeping me awake all night, gobbling. Like that's what I want. And it, but it's as hunters, being able to like to protect wildlife habitat, to set off certain areas, to not have agriculture in industrial areas come into that, to protect that. I think that's such a valuable thing that hunters that we bring to the table that sometimes gets overlooked.
Yeah, and like you said before, there's so many of the non-hunting public that thinks that we're just out there shooting every animal that goes by, and they don't realize how much benefit we're paying to these animals and stuff. That I always look at it as like a beef farmer. Like a beef farmer, I'm sure he loves his cattle and stuff, and he's not killing every single one of them just to kill them. He's raising them up for a reason, and that's the same that we look at it the same way for the deer and bear that we're hunting and stuff. Like for us, for bears, we'll feed 50, 60 bears in a year. Might take out a dozen if the most, if that, right? And the rest of them we're helping them to get fattened up for the winter to survive. And we do care about them. Like a lot of times we know those bears and stuff for every bait site that we hunt, and we're selective. We are taking, we're not just taking any bear at all, right? We know which ones is the older males, the ones we're after. And same with the deer. But, we're not they're shooting fawns and button bucks and stuff. We're after the mature bucks.
Yeah. So if someone is interested in helping to mentor other hunters, obviously COVID has made a lot of things really challenging. What are some things that you recommend people do? Is there information that they could look? Obviously, Nova Scotia, you don't know things, but just in general, what are some things that we can do as hunters to help pre-hunters become hunters, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of these groups on Facebook, especially and stuff, that you see it every day. People reaching out, they're looking for help. Like right now, with fishing season being in full swing down here, like every day, there's people going on. I just want to go learn how to go fishing. I want a spot to go to, and it's the same thing for hunting season. I see you guys that are all the time, like looking for just to learn, to get out there. So I mean, if somebody's looking to teach it, then it's just a matter of being in these groups and select, even if you just pick one person this fall and try to get them out and show them a few things and set them up and help them out. Yeah. It's only going to make it better for our sport for sure, the more we can help educate.
Yeah, I agree, and that's one of the things, again, like I mentioned a couple of times in this conversation, is that the joy of seeing someone else's experience, it can equal and sometimes eclipse even our own. Like you mentioned, that girl, but just seeing those does in the field, how excited she was, and we can forget sometimes. It's good to be reminded of
for
how,
sure.
I'm like this is incredible of what we're seeing here. And again, with my kids, myself, I know it's just great to dad, like, okay. And to share that excitement, and it's not that it only adds to the experience to be able to share those things with the next generation, whether it's those who are younger, like children, or those who maybe, we said, full adults who have yet to experience it. Because the more we share, the more our wildlife and our habitat is going to be taken care of, and the better it's going to be for us, and better it's going to be for our children, and our children's children, going forward, to see this legacy carry on.
For sure. That's what it's all about, really.
Yep. No, that's great, Shannon. It's I appreciate your time today. It's been really, I've enjoyed it. And again, if people want more information on some of the products that you represent, where should they go?
Well, I'm all over Facebook and Instagram and everything else going, YouTube and you name it. So I guess probably just look me up on social media is the easiest thing. And I say I carry two phones all the time with all the multiple jobs I do have, so I'm always reachable. Usually within 5 minutes, I'm usually getting back to somebody. So
Oh, that's great. Well, again, I appreciate it and look forward to more conversations in the future.
great, thank you very much for having me.